Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Centric. This being a show where I talk about crime dramas that I watch. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episode of Notorious as well as the latest episode of the Blacklist. So something kind of starting it off with how I got it wrong last week when I was talking about Notorious, about the fact is why Julia didn't tell Jake about the pictures and whatnot. I was thinking like, okay, maybe she didn't tell him anything because she was under the impression maybe he was guilty or something. But it's like, no, she just, in her words, she's like, she wanted to give Jake some space because, the whole dealing with Sarah's death type of situation. Well, probably, because at the time she didn't really know about Jake's past. I mean, she didn't find out to this episode, but I guess it's just like, oh, the wife of your client and good friend Oscar is dead. So maybe she's like, maybe you needed space to help him deal with everything that's going on. But, Jake got super pissed about it. I mean, granted, he ended up saying later on it wasn't about her. It was just kind of the whole situation. Because he, like I said, he brought up the fact is that him and Sarah had slept literally the day before. He had originally said the fact is that the pictures were meant to depict. It's like the pictures were sent to her to kind of make it seem like, oh, like Oscar was abusive. It's like, and the fact is the picture about him cheating could be Photoshop or it could be simply something that was taken before Oscar and Sarah got together. Like, seriously, still in the back of my mind, because I'd almost forgotten I said this last week, but it came back to me. I was like, yeah, that this whole thing is like a ploy, that like Sarah and someone else she was working with, like this whole thing was a scheme, and that basically her partner turned on her, like manipulating Jake, manipulating Oscar. That's what this was all about, and her partner killed her, and so, maybe the partner got greedy about this whole situation or something. Maybe they were going to get a payout or something. I don't know. And maybe Sarah felt like the easiest thing she could do was manipulate Jake. The reason why she didn't tell him about her plans, the whole, like, getting a fake passport and whatnot. But the fact of the matter is, kind of trailing back, is that Julia kept those pictures. It's been a couple days since the first episode. And he's like, wait a minute, you've had these for a couple days and you wait till now to tell me. She's like, like I said, you're dealing with all that stuff. I didn't want to kind of put that, kind of all on you while you're dealing with this situation right now. She's like, but I promise I won't put those pictures up. I won't do you like that. Cause we're such good friends. We're kind of partners in this whole thing. And it's kind of like, I don't know, because it does seem a little shady that you didn't tell him, like, over the past couple days, you didn't feel the need to tell him. Because, like I said, like, my only reasoning for her not telling him that was, like, oh, because she suspected he might be part of it. But it's like, now you see, it's kind of like, maybe she was struggling with her own conscience on whether or not to screw Jake over like that. Like I said, they kind of have that relationship where it's like, oh, I got the upper hand on you, kind of screwed you over this time, but we're still good type of situation. But it seems like that wasn't the case, it's just, I don't know. I think legitimately she was struggling on whether or not she was, I don't know. I'll give her the benefit of the doubt and be like she was trying to look out for Jake's well-being. I mean, because it kind of got shown, like she kind of got it spit in her face this episode because she wanted to talk to Sarah's brother and he was basically like, oh, like, you're trying, I know about your show. You basically take people's pain and you feed it as entertainment. You kind of just twist everything around. Because basically she had brought up the example of the OJ trial about Nicole. Basically all Nicole was known as was, oh yeah, a celebrity's wife. That's all she was known as, rather than like all these other things about her. The fact that she opened up her house to a lot of people, that just who she was as a person, rather than just being Nicole. It's like, oh, Nicole who's connected to OJ. Like that's all she was kind of known as. And it's like, I want to be Sarah's voice. And he's basically like, she was basically saying, I can make plenty of people care, because he was basically saying like, you don't care about my sister. And it does seem like that, doesn't it? Like, it's not, at the end of the day, I don't know whether she really does care about Sarah or not. I think now she kind of cares about Sarah because she knows about the whole situation with Jake and she wants to get justice, not for just Sarah, but also, for Jake's peace of mind. But beforehand, it does seem like all she cared about was ratings, especially because she used the words like, I can make the world care about your sister. Is like, he's like, how do you sleep at night? Because it does show you, like, I brought it up last episode that she's able to manipulate and kind of push whatever she wants to out there into the world and kind of add whatever narrative to it that she wants. And it, when you do look at it, you're like, oh, that is very despicable. It's kind of like, you kind of see the very ugly side to her job. It can be used in a good way, but even the way we've seen her use her job so far is kind of like manipulation and just trying to get people to, I don't know, like, it makes you wonder, it makes you wonder how she got to where she is. I'm wondering, will that be something we kind of get to see in future episodes of how she got to where she is, being who she is? Because even Jake, still being pissed at her and everything, is like, oh, you're very jaded. Have you become this very jaded because the job and everything? And it does bring up that question, like, was she always like this, or did someone teach her to kind of be more like this? Because I'd love that to be kind of the way things go. Like, it's not like she just stumbled upon this job. She was actually a very good girl. She kind of followed the rules, didn't want to kind of go in very gray areas. Like, at the very least, they do some very morally gray things at the very least. So it'd be kind of interesting. You find out it's like, oh, she was actually a nice girl. She would have never done this in the past. But then someone kind of taught her kind of the ropes and was like, oh, this is how things work. So this is how you got to do it too. So, I mean, because this all ties into this week's episode. I mean, I'm guessing the whole Sarah's murder thing is going to be like a season thing while also tying in with other stuff too. Because for today, it was like Jake had got a new client. It was basically a lady named Abby. Her son Noah had gone missing. And Julia immediately was like, yo, I talked to her ex-boyfriend. Her ex-boyfriend says she doesn't have kids. She's up here lying about her kid getting kidnapped. And it turns out basically she hid the fact that she has a kid, because it's like, I'm not going to introduce my son to someone I'm just met unless I find out, everything's right, unless it's the right guy to kind of bring into Noah's life. And then, it start coming across Julia's mind of being like, well, maybe she did something to her son. It's because, like, she used another example of a woman that killed her children just so she could be with the guy, because the guy she was having an affair with didn't want kids. So he was kind of ending the relationship in that regard. So it's like, maybe she's doing that, but and like I said, it does make sense why Jake would be like, wow, you are very jaded, because she came after theory after theory. And it's like, that's why I'm wondering, was she always like that? Was this just something that just kind of happened to make her like that? It also makes you wonder, could this all, could she be even more jaded because of what happened in the first episode, finding out that her boyfriend was just sleeping with prostitutes and whatnot? So many things still left in the answer. I mean, we did find out who sent the photo to Julia in the first episode of Sarah's body, she found out before Jake did. Well, she kind of found out around the same time Jake did. But that person who sent her the photo was Ryan, because it was basically him trying to score brownie points, because he was trying to, get her some information that she could use so she could be the first one to kind of air it. But ended up doing that. It's like, why'd you send it to me instead of the cops? It's like, you better keep this tight-knit, because the fact of the matter is, if this comes out, you're going to be looked at as a suspect for this. So, I mean, it's very interesting. The fact is, we find out a little bit more about him in this episode. The fact is, he's sleeping in Julia's office because he has such a problem with his dad. And he basically lied to his dad, said like, oh, he's got his own place because he couldn't stand being around his dad, kind of like he said his dad treated him more like a servant than a son. So not getting the respect he feels like he deserves. Ended up explaining himself to Julia about why he likes the job so much. It's because he gets to work underneath her, because she's someone that stood up to his dad, like called him an ass, because basically he was paying female workers less than male workers. So she called him an ass, and he found that very inspiring, because it's like, she's one of few people that stood up to his dad. No one stands up to his dad, not even him. And so that kind of gave him the inspiration to be like, you know what, that's why he wants to be more like her. She's willing to give him another chance, like, but next time he screws up, he's out. So I just kind of get the feeling that that's going to happen pretty soon. Or maybe it's going to be a situation where it's like, oh yeah, like, it seems like I screwed up, but I didn't. This is someone else screw up, but it looks like I'm the one that screwed up. But interestingly enough, Ryan wasn't the one that sent her the other pictures, because she asked him about it. He's like, I don't know what you're talking about. And she's like, okay, that's good. That's fine. So sent her the picture of Sarah to Julia. And Jake did ask about where did that picture, like, how did he find out, like, where he find out that information from. And she's like, basically, like, he's like, who told you? And she's like, I got to protect my source. It's like, it's not connected to the case. You say that, but there's no telling what Ryan might have noticed that he doesn't realize he noticed. Because I know that's going to come back to bite them in the ass. I'm surprised those photos she hasn't gotten them, like, come back to bite her in the ass yet. Because, like, they put so much emphasis on focusing on the fact is that she put them in that drawer and then she locked it. It's kind of like, I was halfway expected, okay, like at some point during the episode, someone's going to break in there get the pictures and leak them, and it's just gonna, I'm gonna feel bad for Jake. It's going, especially for Oscar, because it's gonna come out that your wife is cheating on you. So I mean, like I said, it depends on whether that photo was of Oscar cheating or not, you know. So especially because the one person he feels like he can rely on at this point is Jake, and once those pictures go out, it's like Jake's no longer going to be on his side. He's going to be pissed, and it's like the last person that would be on his side is no longer on his side, so he's basically going to have to stand on his own 2 feet. But like I'm saying, like, the fact of the matter is Ryan could be, like, I get the feeling that eventually it's going to come back that Ryan did send a photo and he's going to get arrested, and they're going to grill him, and he's going to end up realizing some details he didn't realize before. At that point, what's most likely to happen is Julia is going to get Jake to represent him. So just throwing that out there. I mean, I might end up being completely wrong, but it's kind of fun to think if that might be the case. But going back to the other side of this episode was with Abby and her child. Apparently, she did fake the kidnapping, but not in the sense of where Julia thought she did something to the child. The reason she gave the child to someone else and made it look like a kidnapping because her husband, who's in jail, is basically threatening that he's going to get out of jail. He's going to find him and get custody of his son again. And it's just, she didn't want to take that chance. She didn't, like, you know, he was abusive. He broke her nose, broke her arm. She wasn't about to put her son through that hell. And so she felt like she had no other choice. There was no other way. Like, he was getting paroled, and she was like, she couldn't, like, take the chance of him being around their child, like, especially for him to try and fight for rights of their child. So she faked the whole kidnapping thing. Luckily, the phone calls that he had in prison were used against him, so he's getting extra time for threatening her. But they were like, the fact is you falsified a crime, you know, saying your son had been kidnapped. I mean, granted, she didn't want the whole publicity, but Jake and Julia kind of pushed her to it, more specifically Jake. So that's why I'm sure they were more willing to help. It kind of balanced out what Sarah's brother had brought up, to the fact is that Julia's like, she takes pain and she kind of airs it out to people. It's like, yes, she did that with the best of intentions, but at the same time, it's like things might not have escalated the way they did if she hadn't, you know, if her and Jake hadn't kind of pushed. But like I said, at the same time, it was for good cause, and they were doing it for good reasons. And if they hadn't done it, things probably would have been worse for Abby, because the police would have eventually probably found out about it, because the police have kind of dropped it now because, like, the baby's been returned and it's kind of a low priority case now, sort of. So, but I'm sure it's going to rear its ugly head because, like, maybe some new evidence will arise and whatnot. But for now, she's got her son back and doesn't have to worry about her ex-husband. So, you know, it's kind of a win for now. Hopefully it stays that way, but who knows if it will. And then we had the whole situation with Jake getting Oscar arrested. I was actually surprised. Like, I figured I had some idea what his plan was. I wasn't really sure. I was like, I get why you're doing it. Maybe, I mean, because Oscar's basically drinking himself into a frenzy. And it's like, you can't have the police questioning him like that, because he might slip up and let some crap loose that, like, he shouldn't be saying. That, but basically, we had Jake kind of recanting his statement to that detective, being like, okay, I'm thinking about it a little bit more. He wasn't with, we didn't get there to the crime scene at the same time. He actually got there before me. It's like, oh, you know what this means? I have to run this up to my commanding officers because you're telling me that. He's like, hey, you got to do what you got to do. The whole scene at the funeral. Like I said, once again, that gray area with the best of intentions, possibly. Basically put on that little performance of like, oh, they have no decency trying to make an example. They're here arresting him in a funeral, dude. They have no shame. Basically trying to give himself basically putting himself on a soapbox to kind of basically get the public's opinion on Oscar's side rather than being against him. It's just kind of a manipulative situation. It worked out for Julia because Julia was able to help use that situation to spin to get Sarah's brother on her show, basically because he was saying like he wants to tell the truth about Oscar. So, I mean, tying back into it, like earlier talking about the photos, so maybe he wants to talk about the fact that Oscar is an abuser, and then Oscar's like, I'm not, which might tie into my theory that maybe, just maybe, Sarah might have been working with her brother behind all this too. That's what all the photos, like, who would you trust the most out of anyone, like when it comes to committing a crime like that? Theoretically, in the show situation, I feel like it'd be your sibling, the person you trust the most. until I'm proven wrong. Like I know I'm thinking the worst of people. I literally I know this ain't the right genre or right podcast to be talking about, rather. But the same thing with Beauty and the Beast. I was so sure Kyle was a bad guy. I mean, he screwed up at one point in the series, but overall he was just a nice guy trying to be with Heather. I know that might not mean something to someone watching, listening to this. But my point is, I'm probably going to think badly of her, but then it ends up turning out, I was like, no, she was a victim in this. She obviously is a victim, whichever way you spin it. But in that situation, it's more like, oh, she manipulated this situation. So maybe her brother's going to be on air in the next episode being like, oh, Oscar abused her. He's like, no, I'm not. He's lying. Yes, me and her had problems, but nothing like this. Like, I don't know. Because the question is, like, even if that wasn't the case, I mean, because that could explain why she decided that she wanted to get the passport. Could it be argued like, okay, he was abusing her, but it's like the fact is that she wouldn't tell anybody, especially the guy that you have such a long history with, Jake. I mean, we even had him watching videos of her and him like back in like '08, and it was kind of like super sad. It's like, damn, dude, you're just like, that's just going to hit you harder and harder. So, I mean, I'm just very interested to see where this all goes. Like, maybe what we end up finding out next episode is that the pictures did leak. I was so certain they were going to leak. I just get the feeling they're going to, because it's like they're putting so much emphasis on showing you like, oh, this is where she's putting the photos. She's locking the cabinet. It's kind of like, I don't know. Just a very good episode, and I'm very curious to see where it goes from here. I am liking the structure of it. Like I said, it does seem like the whole Sarah situation, Oscar Sarah's case situation, is going to be maybe the main focus of the season, while they're also taking on other stuff. And maybe not. Maybe it'll be something that will be resolved in a couple episodes. Or maybe it'll be the beginning, like the case will be done, but it'll be the beginning of something else. So I'm very curious to see how this show handles it, because I thought it was going to be kind of like because I guess the best comparison would be to kind of compare it to Scandal. That I thought it kind of have a similar, I mean, it seems like it's kind of having a similar setup like Scandal, like where it's like you have the main overarching story and problems to deal with, but at the same time, Olivia has to deal with this other problem that her and her team have to deal with at the same time too, kind of doing a balancing act. So it might be kind of the same type of procedure, I guess. You get what I mean? And now moving on to this week's episode of The Blacklist. So, a lot of things I kind of want to discuss in this episode. For one, is the situation with Liz and Kirk. Bringing the whole plane down, just, get a means of trying to get away. Kirk is like, you have to trust me. And then basically the plane flips upside down because of all the water, obviously. And then, they're holding on, and Kirk, he's like letting go. He lets go. He's like, you just hold on. She lets go, gets him, and pulls him back up. He's like, I told you to not worry about me. She's like, no, you have to trust me. We have to work together. And then basically Liz later on is like, no, maybe, I saved you because of needing to know where Agnes is. That was the main reason why I saved you. But maybe there's also a side of me that believes what you said, which then I was like, oh, well, I was like, that's kind of interesting. But then she kind of makes it seem like it was a lie to kind of gain his trust. But in the moment, I was like, no, it wasn't. You legitimately do kind of think he is your dad. I mean, later on, events kind of showed us that he possibly is. I mean, especially because when she started getting her memories back and everything. But I'll get to that in a second. But it's like, you wouldn't have went out of your way to save him, because he was talking about the fact that you can't leave me here to drown. And she's like, watch me. So it's like, you were okay with the thought of him dying. But the fact of the matter is, when he pulled that gun on you and gave it to you, it's like, there's a part of you. I don't know whether it's because she truly believes him, or is it mainly because she wants to believe him? Because the fact is to think that there's some part of her real family out there for her. I mean, especially considering her dad, her foster dad, Sam, died. I mean, he was sick, and you had Reddington killing him out of quote unquote mercy, but it was mainly because Reddington didn't want him to tell her the truth. So it's like she doesn't really have any more of a father figure in her life. So I guess part of her, she's always wanted to know more about her family, and now she has the opportunity presented to her, because Kirk does present a very interesting story. They ended up going to that place called the Summer Palace. Very lovely name. I do like the fact is that he's like, do you know why it's called the Summer Palace? Because my little princess loved it here, and it's been a palace ever since. So it's like, that's kind of sweet. But like I said, she's also getting her memories back. Kirk is saying, Kirk, I said it like Kirk. Kirk is saying that Reddington is straight up lying because, like, Liz remembers, she's like, oh, I shot my dad. And he's like, Kirk is like, no, you didn't. You know, obviously, you know, if you just shot and killed your dad, I wouldn't be here. You saved my life today, so obviously I'm here today. So it's kind of like, don't, like, part of me is like, why would Reddington lie if that was the case? But then, you know, Kirk does bring up a good point of the fact is he was obsessed, you know, he's obsessed with Liz because he loved her mom so much, and he'd do anything to kind of lie and manipulate her to keep her on his side. That's kind of the point Kirk is trying to get across. But the fact of the matter is, like, my theory is that basically, well, really prediction is the right word, because someone actually kind of, I recently heard someone kind of be like, oh yeah, theories aren't kind of the way people make them out to be. Theories are only theories once they're proven. Until then, they're a hypothesis. So, to correct myself, my hypothesis is that maybe there's truth to both of them. That Kirk is her dad, but she did shoot him, but she didn't kill him all those years ago. Because that it might have been something that Reddington put, like, you know, even if it was a lie, the fact is, Liz remembered it. And then she came to Reddington about it. He never told her the fact that she shot her dad. She remembered it first, and then she went to him about it. So, like I said, I'm thinking that they're both telling the truth, but at the same time are both lying because they're leaving out huge details. Yes, the truth is that you can obviously tell that Reddington had feelings for her mom and that he loves Liz, you know, in a daughter sense. Like, he really cares for her because she's, you know, the last piece of her mom that he kind of has left, and he's, you know, always wanted to be near her because of, I guess, because of that reminder, because she is the offspring of the woman he loves so much. But I do believe Kirk, in the fact of the matter is, he is her dad, and it's going to be a very interesting situation, is what I'm getting at. Like, going forward, because she's come back home, she's reunited with Tom, still doesn't have Agnes yet, but the fact of the matter is she's back home, but she didn't take the little bracelet that she found in her home, you know, that her and her mom had buried. She didn't take it off, so she is like, you know, because when the FBI showed it up, start killing people, and then she was like, no, she ran into the house because she wasn't looking for Kirk, because she didn't want him to get killed or hurt. If he got arrested, that's fine, but she didn't want him to die. I mean, he ended up getting away. She didn't want to let on, but I'm sure there was a bit of a sigh of relief knowing that he got away. We did see her and Wrestler hug, so, you know, reunited, you know. But what I was getting at, it's going to be very interesting to see how that relationship goes on from it, because she's going to look at Reddington as a liar now. It's like, I know he's my dad. It makes you wonder, will she even say anything like that, continuing to work with him? Will she return to the FBI too? I mean, things are going to be a little kind of iffy already. Because of Samar, like, she's forgiven her to a certain degree. Like, she didn't want, you know, anything to happen to Liz, because it's like she wouldn't be able to handle. Because Haran brought up the fact is that, oh yeah, like, I don't think I could handle losing her again, and Samar was like, none of us could. So it's gonna be a little bit awkward, because Harold had a reminder again this episode: put your bull crap aside. We got to go help Liz. So it's gonna be interesting to see where that goes. Like, I'm very interested to see what Samar says herself about the whole situation. Like, last episode, I brought up what I thought it was about. Just like the fact is, Samar has very few people she gets close to, and Liz is one of them. And have one of the few people you trust betray you, it hurts her a lot. I mean, especially considering, let's not forget that she was kind of betrayed by her brother last season too, because he faked his death. He made it seem like, oh, he had died in a terrorist attack, but the fact of the matter is he was behind the attack. He's actually a very bad guy. And, you know, that broke her heart. So that was someone she really loved, cared about, trusted, ended up betraying her. So it's kind of like a repeat of that situation. So I'm sure she hasn't completely recovered from that. She hasn't actually spoken about the situation either. Like, you know, ever since she handed her brother over to Reddington, that was kind of it. I mean, I forgot what the circumstances was, but it was basically like he was the price for what Reddington was trying to get. So I don't know, like, you know, she hasn't spoken anything about her brother since, so I am very curious and wonder, is her heart still recovering from that, and then this whole Liz thing on top of it. But the thing is, like, I get the feeling Liz won't say anything to Reddington about it. She'll just kind of be spite, like, you know, because their relationship is filled with so many secrets. We know Reddington has so much he refuses to tell her. Denbei on multiple occasions has told him, tell her the truth. but he just can't, because I think at the end of the day, it's because he's afraid that if he does tell her the truth, no matter what the circumstances may be, he will lose her, and he doesn't want to do that. I mean, he's done so much to make sure that he stays in her life. Like, and I guess, like, that's why he's always kept stuff from her. That's why he's always lied to her. But maybe with a situation like this, she might not be able to forgive him. But I mean, you also have to think about it too. Like, I don't think she'll ever completely turn against Reddington too, because he's always been there for her over like everything that's happened the past 3 seasons. He's always been there for her. The whole situation with the Cabal trying to frame her last season as being a terrorist. I mean, she did shoot that guy at the end of season 2, but nonetheless, like, they're painting her as a terrorist and whatnot. So he's helped her through a lot. He's been there for her. So the question is, at the end of the day, who will she side with? And I think that's going to make things very, very interesting, is to get the answer to that. Will she go with the man that she truly believes to be her dad, or the man that's always been there for her, but he's kept so many secrets from her? The fact of the matter is, because the thing is, Kirk has against a leg up against Reddington, because he's never lied to Liz. Since she's known him, all Reddington's done is lie to her. So, I mean, like I said, it's going to be crazy to see how things go forward. Then we're going to talk about the whole Kate situation. There's a whole situation about that friend of hers, little Nico, from the past, that basically they had to get information out of him about Motto. Because I had to remind myself that's how you properly pronounce it, because every time I see it, I want to say Mateo or something like that. But it's like the word Motto. So, but trying to get information on Motto, and then you have, rather than doing it himself, because Reddington respects little Nico's not willing to give up people, that he trusts. It's their trust is in him, and his trust is in their trust is in him, and his trust is in theirs. So it's kind of hard. He doesn't want to give up the people that he's working with, and so Reddington's like, I respect that. So let me and he brings in Tom. Tom tortures him, get the information out, and you have Kate saying she's sorry. Now, what ended up happening? It ended up leading to a very interesting conversation where Tom is like, I'm sorry for hurting your friend. She's like, why are you apologizing? He's like, basically trying to justify it, but like, yeah, but it's because it was my child's life in danger. He's like, and basically Kate's like, you need to cut the BS. Just stop. Because she already had Reddington being very insincere, like, oh, I'm sorry this is happening to little Nico's. If it was someone else, she's like, just stop. If you're not going to be sincere with it, don't even put up this front. Because at the end of the day, she does not regret what she did. She did what was right for Liz, because they needed to get away from him, because he's toxic. He's going to bring nothing but death and destruction to her life, like he has so far. He just calls her life used to be so normal until he meddled in it. Basically, the conversation she had with Tom was basically saying, like, you and Reddington want me to make everything okay for you. I guess it makes sense, because my job is a cleaner. That's kind of what I do. I make things go away. I'm not going to ease your consciences about what you did. You want me to make you feel better about yourselves? I'm not doing that. Reddington wants me to make him feel better about himself, because he knows what's needs to be done, and I'm not going to make it easier for him. The whole fact is, he's going to have to kill Kate, which, we'll get to that in a second, but having to kill her because, he can't trust her anymore, but it's also because she betrayed his trust. But she's like, I'm not going to sit here and make you feel better about yourself. Like this whole situation, Tom, you did it for your child. Good. Don't sit here and try to just, try and make me feel okay about the whole situation. It's like, no, I'm not going to ease your conscience. You feel bad about it, feel bad about it. Kind of like suck it up type of shit. Like, I mean, that's me voicing that, but nonetheless, like, I thought it was just kind of very interesting. Like, I mean, the sad thing is, Kate had the best of intentions, because she wanted to protect Liz. She even said it's to Reddington herself. I'm doing what you hired me to do. Since the moment you put Liz in my arm, I've done everything to protect her. But Reddington was pissed at her, being like, this, you presumed to know what's best for me, and then you did what you thought was best for Liz. And then I was just like, the moment they got out the car, like, you could see it on Dembe's face when they were driving. You saw it on Kate's face. It's like, yep, it's come down to this. He's like, basically, she's his closest confidant. She knows all his secrets. She knows his weaknesses. She can't be left alive. And she's like, I've done everything for you. I've never betrayed your trust. Like, basically, this being the one time I betrayed you. And it's like, how can you say I betrayed you? Because I'm doing the same thing I've always done, do what's best for you. And in this case, I did what was best for Liz, which is doing the best for you. But Reddington didn't see that way, and he shot her. I was hoping, I was like, please don't kill her. Like, I kept, because I'm me, like, when something comes up on TV and I'm not really sure I want to watch it, I don't turn away from the channel. I kind of mute it, because I'm like, because part of me is thinking, like, anytime her back was turned, I was like, oh, he's going to pull out a gun, mute the TV. I was like, okay, he's not doing it. They're just talking. I was like, I don't know. I know it's coming. And in fact, he's like, okay, this acre of land, it's yours. I'm like, okay, whew. And then he's like, for all eternity. I was like, no, I was like, oh, God. And then he walks away. But we see her kind of twitch a little bit. So she's still alive, maybe? And that in itself could be an interesting thing, because it's like, maybe he did that on purpose. Maybe kind of leave her a reminder of like, yeah, your betrayal. This is, I mean, obviously with what he said, it makes it seem like he meant to kill her. But it seems like she is alive. She is a tough old bird, isn't she? Being able to still be alive after that. Which this can come back to haunt Reddington in the worst way. Maybe, yes, she'll come back to make sure that, you know, she'll do whatever she can to make sure Liz doesn't get caught up in it. But maybe this will lead to her seeking vengeance against Reddington and trying to bring everything, like his entire world crumbling around him. She'll probably make sure that Tom, Liz, and Agnes don't get caught up in it. But maybe we'll see her in the future working with Kirk or something. It's like working with him to get Agnes and Liz back. You know, just because she's like, she can't trust Reddington anymore. He did try and kill her and whatnot. So it'd be kind of interesting if that were the case. And before I end this, I do want to talk about something else in this episode I found very interesting. And that was the whole situation that Reddington had brought up in the episode when he was kind of talking to Mateo about, I forgot what the tribe was called, but it's like a certain tribe he was privy to be part of one of the rituals. I think he called it the Sundance ritual. Essentially, basically, you hook yourself to like some suspending hooks, and basically it digs into your skin, and you just kind of let it kind of hold you up. He suspended himself from a tree with the hooks, and it was basically a way of communicating with the spirits. Now, interestingly enough, I mean, anyone listening to this might not know this or even watch the show. I recently did a thing on season 5 of it, but Longmire. Walt did that at one point during the show, was basically like hooking himself and just being out in the sun. It was kind of like a spiritual thing. So I'm like, I wonder, the moment he was talking and describing about it, I was like, is that what that was? Is it something similar to that? So I just found that fascinating. But what even got me even more was the fact is that he was saying, for them, it wasn't about pain and death that really scared them. What scared them is an eternity here, stuck in flesh, be stuck in this world for all eternity. That basically, when they die, they have these spiritual holes. That basically, when the person dies, their spirit can leave their body inside of the coffin. But you know, because if they don't have the hole, like basically the spirit's going to be trapped here for all eternity. There's no like, kind of almost like there's no afterlife for them because they can't escape. And this guy Mateo is a very hardcore dude. He feels no pain, doesn't fear pain, he doesn't fear death. But the moment Reddington threatened, is like, I will bury you in a concrete coffin, basically meaning your spirit won't leave. That's when he spoke. So it's like, it's very fascinating. Just, I mean, belief is a strong thing. So, you know, especially something that, you know, people have believed for generations upon generations. I'm not trying to spit on anyone's beliefs, but I find that very fascinating. It's like, none of that other stuff scared him, but the thought of being trapped here, just, I guess for them, it's kind of like a sacrilegious thing to just, for your spirit to rest, be, you know, stuck here and no way out. It's essentially hell, being stuck, bound to your flesh. I mean, obviously you're dead, but your flesh is stuck in this world instead of moving on. So it is kind of its own form of hell, I guess. I mean, maybe in some interpretations, maybe that itself is exactly hell. I thought that was kind of fascinating and kind of wanted to talk about it. So, but you know what? That's really all I want to talk about in this episode. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.